Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button as we're on the road to 500 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from sports betting to updated rankings every week, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And here today, we're going to be reacting to the Eagles versus Chargers Monday Night Football game from last night. The Eagles kind of having a bit of a late season collapse. Reminded me a little bit of the 2023 season from a few years ago, but I'll get into that here in a few. Going over my top 10 teams here after week 14 on Top 10 Tuesday. And then we're going to round it off with a little bit of Matt's stock market and going over the Phillip Rivers situation in Indy, them signing into the practice squad. Now, who the hell had that on their 2025 bingo card? But let's get right into it here with the Eagles versus Chargers Monday Night Football game from last night, 19-22 in overtime. Man, I'll say this for the Eagles. This is giving me vibes of the 2023 season from a few years ago. I don't know if you guys remember, but they started off hot, got later into the season, kind of started falling apart, and then they ended up getting just destroyed by the Buccaneers in the wild card round. And I remember them talking about, would this be the end of Sirianni, this and that? But then they went on, I think they won the Super Bowl the next year after that, which was last year. So, but it's giving me vibes of that again. I mean, the Eagles were off to a hot start this year. I mean, honestly, even when they were winning games, though, it didn't feel very convincing. I mean, I have a lot of friends that are Eagles fans, and to them, they weren't even convinced. And I've been very hesitant to put this team in the upper rankings all year. I have, because they've been winning games. A win is a win, but I think there are issues from the beginning of the year, the first half of the year, are starting to catch up to them now, to where they would play a good first half or a good second half, and then the other half would just be atrocious football. And that's kind of what it's starting to become now again. I mean, last night, though, I didn't even think they played any good half of a football game. I mean, the first half, I could say for both sides, really. It was a pretty sloppy game last night. Lots of turnovers from Herbert and Hurts. But, yeah, I didn't even think they played like a relatively good half last night. I just thought it was a really sloppy game. And then they ended up losing, and the game ended on a pick, which was Jalen Hurts' whole game last night. Lots of interceptions and turnovers. I don't know if you guys see that play, which doesn't happen very often. He threw a pick, managed to get it back, and then fumbled it again. So he had like 2 turnovers in one possession. It was just pretty wild. But so look, Eagles fans, and I have friends, I tell this too, they don't like hearing me say this. They're like, well, Matt, he's won a Super Bowl. He was Super Bowl MVP. Look at his record as a starting QB in this league. I've always said that there's limitations with Jalen Hurts as your quarterback. Look, this Eagles team, meanwhile, it's true, people like to hear it, has been freaking stacked these last couple of years. Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, their offensive line has been a brick wall. Their defense under Fangio has been fantastic. I mean, all for Zach Ball last year, Jalen Carter, who didn't play last night. Now, maybe they spent a first-round pick on guys like Jordan Davis. I mean, Quinyon Mitchell has been really good. DeJean, I mean, they've been hitting on their draft picks. I mean, he is a freaking loaded team around him, which isn't his fault. I'm not using it against him. Well, I guess I'm not using it against him to make him look bad, but I'm also saying that because it benefits him a lot. I mean, obviously it does. And I think what we seen a few years ago, which I've been saying, well, maybe it's kind of a one-year wonder kind of thing. The team was falling apart. It's really weird. Then now this is multiple years of Jalen Hurts' career, to where, I mean, the season isn't necessarily set in stone, but this is now multiple years of his career that we look at, and this is kind of a late season collapse. And when the team starts falling apart around him, he can't seem to bring the shit. He can't seem to bring it back up with him. It just kind of keeps tumbling downwards and in a downward spiral. So that's where I wonder, like, Jalen Hurts, people kind of call him corny on the podium. They're waiting for his quote of the day or whatever it is. I don't really give a shit about any of that. But I think in terms of his leadership with A.J. Brown and those guys, there's a lot of drama in the locker room. Guys like Brady, of course, sometimes there's always drama in any locker room for a little bit, but it doesn't go far. Like this whole thing with AJ Brown and the organization, I don't know if you guys have seen over the week, but in the Eagles locker room, that there's a big, massive inflatable bunny called the Positivity Bunny. Like the franchise feels kind of desperate right now. And it just doesn't really feel like there's much leadership. Like I've always thought Nick Sirianni is kind of a dick, to be honest with you. I've seen what he kind of taunts his own fan base a little bit, especially last year. I think when they were going against Cleveland and Deshaun Watson, and they were calling for his firing or whatever, and he's up there saying, screaming at the fans. I mean, who knows? I just always thought he's been kind of a dick. I mean, that's my opinion, but still, I think this team is lacking leadership right now, and it felt like last night too that AJ Brown didn't necessarily have the best game in the world. He had moments where he dropped the one and ended up turning into a pick, and then some balls kind of went his way that he didn't end up catching and just didn't really work out. It just almost kind of felt like at moments like he's trying to force feed AJ Brown a little bit because of all the drama with him on the Madden stream a few weeks ago. I don't know if you guys have seen that clip or whatever, but if you haven't, I highly suggest looking at it. And just even besides that, like it definitely feels like there's a bit of like, I got to force feed this guy the football, which in Jalen Hurts' defense isn't necessarily his fault. It's a lot of pressure from a potential Hall of Fame caliber receiver. Having a diva receiver in the locker room is like one of the worst things imaginable. Look at Brandon Ayuk, who I think AJ Brown is better than, but Brandon Ayuk is still a pretty good player. He's going to end up getting cut from the 49ers. Now, the Eagles aren't going to cut AJ Brown by any stretch, but I don't think AJ Brown's going to be an Eagle next year. I know he's been saying over time that, well, no, I do want to stick with the Eagles, but I heard what he said on the Madden stream. Clearly his attitude, he doesn't really want to be there. The stuff doesn't come out for no reason. It doesn't. There's clearly something going on. And then the stuff with the big inflatable bunny in the locker room, it just feels like desperation mode, and things are heading in the wrong direction for the Eagles. I thought last night that they had to win that game. That was like a must-win game to where they could take 3 games over the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys lost on Thursday against the Lions, and they've had multiple losses all year. How even the first week against Philadelphia, the first game of the year, they had multiple opportunities. The CeeDee Lamb ended up going through his hands a couple of times at big spots. What's the other game I was trying to think of? I don't know. I can't think of it now. But even the Lions on Thursday, if they were to end up pulling off that win against a seriously injury-depleted Lions secondary, they just had multiple games all year to where they've just been incredibly inconsistent. So the Cowboys, while I think the Eagles are not trending in the right direction, I think they're still going to end up winning the NFC East. But it's just really weird what's going on there in that organization. And as I mentioned with Jalen Hurts and his limitations at QB for the team, look, I love the guy. I think he's a good guy. I don't really think he starts any drama per se, but I don't necessarily think he's the greatest leader in the world. Some guys just have that mentality and some guys don't. I'm not saying he ain't a leader at all, but in terms of being able to put an organization on his back, guys like Allen, Manning, Brady, Mahomes, even though Mahomes isn't necessarily having the greatest year this year, and then teams kind of going around them, but I think that has to do with age and some other things. I think the Philadelphia roster is more than capable of winning 13, 14 games at their best, but they're clearly not at their best. So I think now we're in a couple-year sample size when the organization is trending in the wrong direction. Jalen Hurts can't seem to bring it back. And as a quarterback, it's kind of your responsibility a little bit. Now, it doesn't all fall on him, but some of it does. I mean, honestly, guys do turn it around. Some of the best leaders in the sport, where he's in that position where he's been to a couple of Super Bowls, he's won a Super Bowl, like he can cement his legacy and really not be seen as a guy who's kind of a system quarterback. But the more I kind of look at it, the more I kind of think of like, this guy, everything kind of has to seem like it has to be right around him for it to be right. And that's what it kind of seems like it's starting to fall into for Jalen Hurts. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback. I do believe he is a good quarterback, but I think you're just limited with him. I don't think he's quite to where Lamar or Josh Allen or any of those guys are, in my opinion, even though Lamar is hurt and kind of playing like ass right now. But for the Chargers on the other side of the ball, what they're doing, they have every excuse in the rule book to sit there and say, hey, we're losing games this season. If they were losing games, and just kind of be like, look at our offensive line. We're missing our top 2 tackles. And mind you, our tackles aren't just, middly ranked tackles. Like these guys are fantastic at their position. We just drafted one like 5th overall a year ago. Then Rashawn Slater, we just gave a bag to. This guy's one of the best tackles in football. So it's not like we're missing a bunch of scrubs at our tackle position. I mean, they're missing key players. I mean, even Herbert's kind of been dealing with injuries. You look up, it's just the Chargers' offensive line is just terrible. I seen even Pipkins go down yesterday, and the look of sheer terror on Jim Harbaugh's face, which I fully understand with all the injuries you've had on the offensive line. It's just like he's just like, oh, you got to be shitting me with this. We cannot afford for him to go down now. But the Chargers have every excuse in the rule book to just sit there and be like, we could throw the season in the towel, and can anyone really blame us? And they're 9-4. And yesterday felt like a vintage Jim Harbaugh kind of win, to where they only had one touchdown, that pass to Marion Hampton last night. And the rest were field goals. And multiple times where I think a lot of coaches in the league, including on the other sideline, Nick Sirianni, would have probably went for it on 4th down and just been like, you know what, we got to chase touchdowns here. We don't got time to kick all these field goals. I mean, you look at the Philly offense. I mean, he could have done it. I mean, they have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Hurts, Saquon. You just look and it's like, look at these guys we're going against. At some point, you have to believe they're going to break off touchdowns. And Jim Harbaugh just kept pounding the rock, trying to put it in Herbert's hands, even with the injury. I thought Herbert actually played a pretty good game yesterday. Even with the pressure that Eagles defense was putting on it, which the Eagles defense has still been pretty fantastic, I think. It's just their offense hasn't been great, but even still, they have a bunch of big names, and just still kicking field goals, being like, you know what? Make them beat us. Make Jalen Hurts beat us. Make Kevin Patullo beat us on the other side. And the game ended up going in overtime. He ends up kicking the field goal. Trusting his kicker I think Dicker kicked it from like 50-some yards, I think, or something like that. And how great of a kicker has he been? I think he has the highest field goal percentage in NFL history right now. So good for him. But yeah, it just felt like a vintage Jim Harbaugh win right there. A lot of coaches will tend to go for it on 4th down and chase the score anymore, but not him. He's just run the ball, kick field goals, play defense. And that's what he did yesterday. Created a lot of turnovers. Tony Jefferson with the game-stealing pick at the end of the game ended up picking him up off the street. I mean, God, a lot of people forgot about him. He was a former Raven for a while, and a pretty good one at that. And I think he was out of football for a little bit, and what a bit of a story he's had with the Chargers, right? I mean, he's been pretty fantastic. But kind of getting back to the Eagles here for a brief moment before I move off into my top 10 teams for the week. This Kevin Patullo thing as well is not necessarily going to just be solved here within a week or so. We are 14, 15 weeks to this Kevin Patullo experiment. Clearly, Nick Sirianni doesn't feel comfortable with himself making the calls in terms of the offense. He's leaving the play calling duty up to Kevin Patullo, and it's not going to be solved. It's just a disaster. I thought Saquon Barkley last night had, I think he had like 20 carries or something like that. He should have way more than that. Look at what Ben Johnson's doing with Guy and DeAndre Swift. They're getting like 40-something carries a game. I mean, it's just, he should be just, what he was doing to that Chargers defense broke off the big run for the touchdown. I look up, every other run, it seems like he's breaking off 8, 9, 10+ yards a run. And Patullo just gets away from it every time to try to force feed A.J. Brown at Devontae Smith. So this isn't going to get solved. This isn't going to be something we look up and it's like, oh, the Eagles are going to fix it. Like, this is an issue. I said the Eagles are in desperation mode, and that's kind of what it feels like. But a good win for the Chargers last night to keep the momentum going up for them, and they moved to 9-4 on the season. So moving into my top 10 teams after Week 14, let's get right into it with my honorable mention. Being the Los Angeles Chargers, just went on a full thing with them. They have every excuse to kind of just throw in the towel for the season and just be like, hey, I'm kind of done here. Like, we can kind of trash the season. Can anyone blame us with our offensive line injuries and stuff like that? And Jim Harbaugh just shows how good of a coach he is. I think he could be in the run for Coach of the Year as well. He's not going to win it over Johnson or Vrabel, but kind of like the same with Kyle Shanahan as well. All the injuries they've sustained on their offensive and defensive lines, or the defensive line for San Francisco, now the offensive line for the Chargers. These two deserve some sort of award. Pretty incredible what they're doing down there. Now, at my number 10 spot, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Look, this whole season, I haven't really known what to do with the Jags. Kind of kept them out. They've been on the brink of the top 10 for weeks, but after their win against Indy, which I know they were dealing with quarterback issues, Indy was, but how Trevor Lawrence looked in that game and how the team has looked over the last couple of weeks, they're like 9-4 and leading that division right now. The Jacksonville and Houston matchup is going to be pretty interesting to see. But if Trevor Lawrence can play like he did against Indy, just big time passes. He looks like the number 1 overall pick he was supposed to be coming out of Clemson. If he could keep playing like that, this team's going to be in good shape. A lot of young talent. Liam Cohen's doing some great things. Again, another guy who should sneakily be in the Coach of the Year conversation. I don't know where he necessarily ranks at in terms of the odds, but they've turned that organization around. My only issue is Trevor Lawrence. Can he stay consistent, especially against good defenses and good teams? I guess we'll see it later on coming up in these next few weeks. Number 9, I have the San Francisco 49ers. Kind of like I mentioned with the Chargers, they've had every excuse in the rule book this year to be like, hey, we could throw in the towel. Could anyone really blame us? We had to stick in Mac Jones for a majority of the year. Kittle was out for a while. Our defensive line is full of USFL guys. I mean, Cleveland Farrell is one of their edge rushers, I think. And the amount of defensive injuries they've had and what Robert Saleh has done with that group is pretty incredible. Kyle Shanahan, like I mentioned, with all their offensive injuries for the majority of the year, they've gotten a lot of their offensive players back at least. But look, this is a team that shouldn't even be up here this time of year with all the injuries they've had, but they've been fantastic, and I think they're a top 10 team in the league, especially with their offense getting healthy now. At number 8, I have the Buffalo Bills coming off of a win against the Cincinnati Bengals earlier this week on Sunday. Look, the Bills, the only concern I have is their defense. They had a couple of really good picks against Joe Burrow at the end of the game, ended up boosting their momentum to come back within the last 7-8 minutes or so when they were down a couple of scores. Had a pick 6 and another interception on Joe Burrow, so that's a good sign for the Buffalo Bills. I thought Sean McDermott's job could have potentially been in jeopardy had the defense been the issue for that game, which it was looking like, and Joe Burrow was kind of torching them for a majority of the game. But as long as they have Josh Allen healthy and can manage to find some sort of consistency in their offense, this is going to be a team to look out for. Now, I think this game against New England this week is going to be really interesting for the Buffalo Bills. So that's going to be a really good game. At number 7, I have the Houston Texans, a team I said yesterday to me it's the scariest team in the NFL right now. And you're probably saying, hey, Matt, well, how are they the scariest team in the NFL, which have them ranked number 7? Their offense is what is really concerning to me. Not necessarily really concerning, but they have the 22nd ranked offense in the NFL. I've been saying all year, if they even had the 12th ranked offense in the league, I think this team would probably have one loss. I mean, they have held teams. I think every game this year, they've held opposing quarterbacks to under 225 yards passing. And 10 games this year, they've held them to under 20 points. In an offensive league, that's just incredible. The way D'Amico Ryans has this defense schemed, and the way they're playing right now is just really good. And the offense has seemed to kind of get a little better at each week. So this is a team we could look up, maybe potentially with them winning it all at some point, if they can really get their offense. A big boost is what they need. But I have them at number 7 for now. Number 6, I have the Chicago Bears. Look, I know they had a loss against the Green Bay Packers in a big divisional game in order for them to try and keep the number 1 seed in the NFC for now. They ended up losing, but I thought it was a very impressive loss. Number 1 rushing attack in the NFL. Love Ben Johnson's scheming. Love the play calling. I thought Caleb Williams had a bad pick at the end of the game, but multiple times I look at the Bears games and it's like I look up and it's like, this team, honestly, we could kind of look up and it's like, hey, they're down. Is this team going to be down 21-3? But they have a lot of resiliency and toughness and stick in these games, even when they're down like they were 14-3 against Green Bay. You look up, it's like a 1-score game and a tie game. So they stay close no matter how much they're down at any point in the game, and it doesn't matter who they're against. Number 5, I have the Seattle Seahawks. Look, the Seahawks, only thing that concerns me with them is Sam Darnold and can their offense be consistent. Young team, young, inexperienced head coach who has been great. The team's been great, but kind of coming in later into the season and playoff time, I get a little bit concerned with young teams and especially the quarterback that is very boomer bust, and in big spots, we see that he can kind of land in the bust category. But the Seahawks, fast, great defense. Jackson Smith and Jigba is on pace to have like the greatest receiving season ever right now. So lot of good pieces there for the Seattle Seahawks, but just worried about them in big spots. Number 4, I have the Green Bay Packers. Big time win against the Chicago Bears. I thought what I think with the Packers now is that they found their identity again. For a few weeks, the Green Bay Packers kind of seemed like, hey, this team could be in some serious trouble. There's about fire on the floor, a lot of pressure there. They ended up pulling themselves back together and really making something happen. It seems like they found an identity on offense and has found that they have an amazing pass rush, but they haven't lost all year. I thought their defenses looked fine all year, but their secondary gets better every week. We know their pass rush is really fierce, and now their offenses seem to have found an identity. And Jordan Love is like 4th in MVP voting right now, so this is a team to really look out for. And they proved it against the Bears. The Bears are a good team, and they look fantastic in that game at home. And number 3, I have the Denver Broncos. The only concern I have with Denver is how consistent can their offense be? How far can Bo Nix and this offense take this team? We know their defense is fantastic. They're right there with the Houston Texans in terms of being the best defense in the league, and their offensive line is fantastic. I think they had the fewest given up sacks in the league so far, but I'm just a little bit concerned with their offense. But as long as their offense can play up to par with their defense, we'll look at this team as a Super Bowl contender for the rest of the year. And number 2, I have the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams, look, they just absolutely just fucking stomped on the Cardinals on Sunday. I mean, there's just not really much to say there. Stafford, with how good he's playing, McVay, the defense, coming off of a loss against the Panthers, which sometimes you just look up at a game and it's like you think you have an easy game, and you just come out and you lose. And that's what I kind of feel like against the Panthers. I thought they still played okay in that game. Stafford with some bad turnovers. He's capable of having a bad game. That's kind of been like that his whole career. You're like, damn, Stafford had a terrible game. It's just who he is, man. He's a gunslinger, so it happens. But they look fantastic in that game against the Cardinals, and they're the best team in the NFC to me. In my number 1 spot, I have the New England Patriots off a bye week this week. Their biggest game of the year is this week against the Bills. Everyone talks about their cupcake schedule, this and that. They have a big chance to clinch the AFC East this week and beat the Bills, and they are at home. So this is big for this team, and Drake May in the MVP conversation as well. So not much to say there with them off a bye, but I think they're the number 1 team in the league right now. Let's get into Matt's stock market here. So last week was my first segment of Matt's stock market. If you're not familiar with this segment, I have teams we buy into. We have new teams we buy into every week. We have teams that we sell every week that mind you, when I sell a team, I do not buy back into the team. I'm out on them the rest of the year. Now, mind you, when I do sell a team, it does not necessarily mean that this team is, sometimes these teams are still going to make the playoffs, but I do not think this team will get to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl at all. I don't even think they have a chance to do so. And I'm completely out on this team. And again, I don't even put in teams like the Saints or the Giants, any teams like, there's no use talking about those teams and getting them in there. They're out of the playoffs. But last week, some teams that have already been bought and sold, teams I've been bought into. Again, when I buy a team they're bought into, I stay with them the rest of the year as well. The Patriots, Broncos, Rams, and Seahawks, they've been bought. I think those are like some of the best contenders in the league right now. And then the teams I've been sold on after last week is the Ravens and the Lions. Ravens, I don't want to do much into them. I just do not trust them. I don't think their team's that good, and I do not like their coaching at all. I think John Harbaugh and the scheming is the main issue with that team. I don't think it's a talent issue per se, but I think it's the players playing under Harbaugh. Reports coming out that they're kind of sick of playing for him. And, I think that team's just a disaster right now. And the Lions, I'm sold on the Lions with their secondary and their defensive injuries. I love their offense. They're very one-dimensional on offense. It's like this are not one-dimensional on offense. They're very one-sided. This is an offensive team. They have to win in shootouts. Against teams like Green Bay and stuff like that, you're just not going to do that. And we've seen that a few weeks ago on Thanksgiving. So some new teams I'm buying into this week, just a few, is the Packers and the Bears. Yeah, the Bears. I am buying into the Bears. I've seen how they played against the Packers. This is a team I think is going to go into the playoffs. I think they can win some games. I think we can see them in the NFC Championship. And this is a team I'm very much into. I love their scheming. Ben Johnson, everything he does. I really like this team, and they have the most takeaways in the league. They're fantastic. And the Packers, they have found their identity. And I really like them as a team. I do. Jordan Love, one of the best QBs in the league right now. He's really heating up. I think one thing that's really important about a team is that when they heat up around this time of year, this is like the perfect time when a team really starts heating up. Sometimes teams like the Colts peak too early, and I know they're dealing with injuries right now, but I think the Packers are getting hot at the right time. I am buying into the Green Bay Packers right now. And teams I'm selling on this week, I'm selling on the Eagles. I'm done with them. This Kevin Patullo situation will not be fixed all of a sudden. Done with Philly. Chiefs, done with the Chiefs as well. I don't even know if this team's going to make the playoffs as the Eagles. I think the Eagles will make the playoffs, but I think they're probably going to be one and done, to be honest with you, like I mentioned with the Eagles. Very reminiscent of the 2023 year. The Chiefs, on the other hand, I just don't think their team's that good. I think they've tried everything on the rule, everything in the book that they've got. Andy Reid, he kind of looks like, damn, what the hell do I do at this point? They're just old. I think the team will be back in a season, but yeah, I'm out on the Chiefs. I don't think this year's their year at all. The Cowboys is another team. I like the Cowboys. I think they're a good story, and I think this team's about an offseason away from really being a playoff contender again. But I just think too many close losses, too many inconsistencies with the offense and the defense. And I just think they're kind of on a surge at a little bit too late. And I thought that loss against the Lions kind of put the nail in the coffin for their season. I think when you're 6-1, and the Eagles' schedule as well, they played twice against the Commanders. They have a pretty light schedule. I think they're not really playing against much of anybody. So, and then the Cowboys, they don't have a tough schedule, but I think it's tougher than the Eagles. And I think I don't think the Cowboys are going to get in. Another team I'm selling on this week as well is the Colts. Look, I'm going to get into the Phillip Rivers thing here in a few, but they're clearly in desperation mode. This team is desperate as hell. You don't go outside a 44-year-old quarterback if you ain't desperate. Injuries now all over the board. I think maybe the Colts peaked a little bit too early, and I think now it's just kind of coming back to bite them in the ass. Especially with the Jags and the Texans now on the uptrend. The Colts are seriously just nothing's going their way. I'm done with the Colts. The Dolphins is another team. I meant to sell on them last week as well. They're in the hunt, so I figured I'd mention them. But the Dolphins are a team I'm absolutely. Their teams are going to make the playoffs. You look at the teams they beat in the last couple of weeks, New Orleans and New York. They're 6-7 and have the same record as the Chiefs and all the Ravens, but if they were to play the Chiefs and the Ravens right now, and they played the Ravens like a month ago and just got curb stomped, I'm out on the Dolphins. And some teams I'm considering selling and buying that I'm still not necessarily, I don't really know what to do with, is the Panthers, Bucks, 49ers, Bills, Texans, Chargers, Jags, and Steelers. All teams I feel like within a week, we're going to see a lot more teams I'm buying into and a lot more teams I'm selling into. I'm on the verge with a lot of these teams, especially the Buccaneers. I don't know what to do with them. Their matchup against the Panthers, especially over the last couple of weeks, is going to be huge for them as well. So a lot of those teams I'm considering. So make sure to stay tuned next week for Matt's Stock Market to see which one of those teams go in where I buy into for the rest of the year or I sell into. Again, teams I buy into, it seems I legitimately believe can win the Super Bowl, win a couple of playoff games. Teams I sell as teams that I don't even think can win a playoff game. They may get there, but I don't believe they're going to win a game or at least two games. So yeah, that's it for my stock market. Let's end it off here with talking about Phillip Rivers and the Colts. Something that none of us seen coming at all. I mean, my God, you would have told me in 2025 that Phillip Rivers would be back on the Indianapolis Colts. I'd be like, what in the hell, dude? I don't even know. I don't know what to make of it, but I do know what to make of it. That the Colts are desperate right now, and respectfully so. One of the things that I think is going to come back to really bite the Colts, that I think if they could go back and change it, and mind, this happened like a month ago, was that trade for Sauce Gardner. They felt like, hey, we got Daniel Jones, we feel good, we're at the top of the hill. We feel like kings right now. They went out, they traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. And now it's like, you look now, it's like, shit. Daniel Jones, like, we don't even have this guy on a contract, or we don't have this guy on an extension at all. It's just like, kind of felt reckless a little bit by Chris Ballard and that team to kind of do that. I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, this team, you better hope that you don't get injuries. Anything can happen at any point. 2 first-round picks are extremely valuable. And it's like, could they potentially use that to maybe trade up in the draft this year to maybe get a QB if they wanted one? A younger QB. And I'm not necessarily saying they should bail ship on Daniel Jones. I think they made their point that they're bailing ship on Anthony Richardson. I think that experiment's over, at least in Indy. But yeah, I mean, when I seen the report that Phillip Rivers yesterday was going to work out for the Colts today, I was like, I wish they would stream this on ESPN or whatever it was. I'd be all in, I'd watch it. I mean, this is something that I'm like, dude, holy shit, this looks like I'd love to watch him work out for the Colts. Like, I want to see him play. I want to see him play some snaps. I mean, would this be, if he were to come in and win a couple of playoff games or something, if he does end up playing, mind you, he's only on the practice squad, and I don't know what they're going to do with Anthony Richardson once he comes off IR. That's kind of a question mark there. And them signing Phillip Rivers tells me that they don't believe in Anthony Richardson either. Like, they're not waiting for him to come off IR. It's like, no, we need somebody else, like stat. It just feels very desperate. Like, this is a weird situation, and clearly they bailed ship on Anthony Richardson. But I'm all for it. I'd love to see him play. I mean, this would be one of the greatest comeback stories of all time if he were to come in sports, if he were to come in and even get them to a Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be crazy? I mean, they're in position to do so. He played for the Colts 5 years ago. Oh, he's a grandfather now. He's older than Shane Steichen. I mean, he's older than like 12 head coaches in the NFL. You know what's one thing that kind of stuck out to me when I seen that graphic? You know, Sean McVay is only 39 years old with all the stuff he's accomplished. Isn't that pretty crazy? Super Bowl, multiple winning seasons, couple of Super Bowl appearances. He's only 39 years old. He is 5 years younger than Phillip Rivers, and he's like 4 years younger than Steichen and like Kevin Stefanski. Isn't that kind of crazy? I was thinking about that when I seen that graphic. I was like, my God, man. That's a hell of an accomplishment as a coach. That guy could coach another like 40 years if he wanted to. Or maybe at least like 30 years. Maybe 40, he could coach another 30, 35 years if he wanted to. That guy could go down as the greatest coach ever, especially if he keeps up any sort of success he's had. But yeah, man, Phillip Rivers coming back to the Colts feels desperate. And as I mentioned with that Sauce Gardner trade, I think they take that back now, especially seeing where their injuries are headed and everything. They felt like they were on the top of the world a few weeks ago, and it shows you how fast it can come crumbling down in this league. That's for sure. So, thought it's a pretty interesting situation. I'd love to see him play. I think we all would. I hope they stick him in there at some point. Gonna have to keep an eye on Anthony Richardson, especially Riley Leonard. He's questionable. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool story. But that's it today, y'all. Appreciate y'all watching. And as always, y'all, catch y'all in the next one.